sounded like the beginning scene of like Criminal Minds or something.
She was savagely killed.
They let us know that somebody was found dead next door.
Decapitated by a freaking savage monster.
They lost a child as well. They lost two.
This daughter, this mother-to-be, and her family were in the planning stages of a baby shower that was supposed to be at the end of June.
Her family would not be burying her and their grandchild.
The tragic mystery of Lisa Dodd. It begins like the opening scene of Criminal Minds, dark, suffocating, and drenched in the silence that hides something terrible. The streets of Alton, Illinois were asleep under the pale glow of the streetlights. It was just after midnight when a security camera perched above a quiet suburban road captured something strange. A man emerged from a modest house, his face barely visible beneath a hoodie. In his hands he carried a white laundry basket, heavy and covered with clothes that seemed hastily thrown together. He walked calmly down the street, his steps unhurried as if he were just another night worker heading home, but he wasn't. The man disappeared behind a tobacco shop, slipping into the darkness beyond the camera's view. No one watching that footage could have guessed what the basket truly held. The next morning, as the sun rose over Alton, life went on as usual until a construction worker stumbled upon something that would turn the entire town upside down. He was cleaning near a dumpster behind a local store when he noticed a trail of clothes, men's jeans, a few shirts, and a pair of red shoes spattered with something dark. Nearby lay a short serrated knife, its blade stained and rusted from something unmistakable. The worker froze. He later told investigators, his voice trembling. Police were called immediately. Within hours, the crime scene was taped off. Officers collected the bloodied knife, the scattered clothes, both men's and women's, and the mysterious white basket. But the truth behind it all was still waiting to be uncovered. That same day, June 9th, 2022, around 1:00 p.m., Heidi Knoll, a mother in her 50s, arrived at her daughter's apartment just a few blocks away. Her daughter, Lisa Dodd, was 22 years old, full of life, and just weeks away from giving birth to her first child. She hadn't answered calls or texts for more than 15 hours, something deeply out of character. Heidi knocked on the door again and again. No answer. The world around her seemed to fall silent. A mother's instinct screamed that something was terribly wrong. She used a spare key and stepped inside. What she saw inside that small apartment would haunt her forever. Moments later, she stumbled back out into the hallway, shaking uncontrollably. Her screams echoed through the building. Neighbors opened their doors only to see Heidi collapse, her phone pressed to her ear as she dialed 911. Police arrived within minutes. What they found was a scene so brutal that even veteran officers struggled to process it. Lisa Dodd's body was discovered in her bedroom. Her life had been taken in a way no words could fully describe. There were signs of struggle, overturned furniture, broken glass, bloodstains across the carpet. But what struck investigators most was the absence. Lisa's head was missing. The apartment was eerily clean, otherwise as if someone had spent hours erasing the evidence, scrubbing away fingerprints, washing away guilt. Only small traces of blood remained, tiny specks that would later become crucial evidence. On the bathroom sink, police noticed faint reddish smudges. Someone had washed up there, but not perfectly. Detectives quickly began piecing together the timeline. Neighbors recalled hearing muffled noises late at night, thuds, a faint cry, then silence. One woman said she saw a man carrying something large out of the building around midnight, but she assumed it was just laundry. It wasn't. Forensic teams scoured the area for hours, searching dumpsters, drains, and nearby woods. Every officer knew that without finding the missing part of Lisa's body, solving the case would be nearly impossible. The white laundry basket recovered earlier suddenly became the center of the investigation. DNA samples matched Lisa's blood. The connection was undeniable. Whoever carried that basket down the street the night before had carried part of her with him. The footage from the surveillance camera showed only fragments. A man in dark clothes, his stride deliberate. No face, no license plate. Just the chilling image of a person walking calmly through the night after committing something unspeakable. Lisa Dodd wasn't just another name on a case file. Friends described her as vibrant, kind, and full of dreams. She had worked part-time at a local diner while preparing for motherhood. She loved painting and often spent evenings sketching names for her unborn baby. Her boyfriend, once seen as charming and helpful, had recently grown distant and unpredictable. There had been arguments, whispers among friends that she planned to leave him. Police began to focus their attention on one man, someone close enough to know her schedule, someone who could enter her home without breaking in. The basket, the knife, the red shoes all pointed to someone who had wanted to erase her completely. As the investigation unfolded, Alton became a town wrapped in fear and disbelief. Reporters crowded the streets. Candlelight vigils appeared outside Lisa's apartment where neighbors left flowers, baby clothes, and handwritten notes. The words, "Justice for Lisa," began to appear on signs on car windows, even on sidewalks in chalk. Behind the scenes, detectives were working around the clock. Forensic results showed that the knife recovered near the dumpster carried not only Lisa's blood, but traces of male DNA. It was a small breakthrough, but not enough. Then came another clue. Security cameras from a nearby convenience store caught the same hooded man walking past around 12:15 in the morning, just minutes after the suspected time of death. In his hand again, the white laundry basket, his face turned slightly toward the camera, revealing the faint outline of a beard. Police finally had a lead. Meanwhile, Heidi Noel's grief turned to fury. She spoke to local media, her voice trembling but determined. "Whoever did this took my daughter and they took my grandchild. I want the world to know her name." For weeks, Alton lived in tension. Rumors spread faster than facts. People whispered about satanic cults, jealous lovers, or even strangers passing through town. But investigators knew it was personal. Behind every horror like this, there is always emotion, anger, betrayal, obsession. Though authorities never released every gruesome detail, what they did reveal was enough to leave the public shaken. Even now, pieces of the mystery remain unsolved. The man seen on that camera, the one walking calmly into the shadows, became a ghost in the town's memory. The kind of ghost that lingers, reminding everyone that evil doesn't always scream. Sometimes it walks quietly down the street carrying a basket pretending it's just laundry. Lisa was born on August 14, 1999, a bright, energetic soul with a heart full of compassion. From an early age, she stood out. At just 10 years old, while most kids were asking for toys and games, Lisa organized a charity drive for an animal shelter. That was her nature kind, giving selfless. After graduating high school in 2017, she began working at a local Dairy Queen, where regular customers remembered her as the girl with the radiant smile and a gentle laugh. She dreamed of following in her mother's footsteps and becoming a medical assistant, helping others for a living. By 2022, Lisa's life seemed to be falling into place. She was 8 months pregnant with a baby girl she affectionately called Baby Bean. Her friends joked that she glowed with that unmistakable soon-to-be mom joy. She'd already mailed out invitations for her baby shower, pink envelopes with tiny hearts and a promise of new beginnings. The house was filled with baby clothes, pastel blankets, and small stuffed animals. Everything was ready. Everything except the future she deserved, because standing in her shadow was DeAndre Holloway, the man who would twist her story into a nightmare. Lisa had met DeAndre almost 2 years earlier. He was her age, charming at first, unpredictable soon after. What started as a whirlwind romance slowly turned into a storm. DeAndre's life was a mess of broken promises and erratic behavior. He bounced between jobs, dabbled in drugs, and often had nowhere stable to stay. There were nights when they slept in a small, tattered tent near Litchfield Lake, their only source of warmth a dying campfire and each other's silence. According to DeAndre's sister PJ, the couple's relationship was like a revolving door. Fights, separations, apologies, and more fights. He would disappear for days, drifting between houses, then show up again, pleading for another chance. And somehow, Lisa always forgave him. She believed in people. She believed he could change. But the bruises told a different story. Friends had seen them, the blackened eye hidden under makeup, the swollen lip she blamed on a fall. The broken nose she swore was from playing with the dog. Those who loved her begged her to leave. But Lisa was trapped between fear and hope. The hope that the man she once loved still existed somewhere beneath the chaos. Security cameras around Alton often caught glimpses of the two together. Sometimes they looked like any young couple laughing, holding hands. Other times the footage showed tension arguments on street corners, DeAndre gesturing wildly while Lisa tried to calm him down. Then came that night. It was just after midnight when one of those cameras recorded something different, something eerie. A man later identified as DeAndre Holloway was seen leaving Lisa's house. He carried a white laundry basket walking down the empty street. No one knew what was inside. He didn't look back. He simply disappeared into the darkness behind a local tobacco shop. The peaceful neighborhood of Alton erupted into chaos. Sirens cut through the early dawn, flashing lights painted the walls of houses, and whispers spread faster than the news vans that soon crowded the street. Inside Lisa's home, investigators found signs of a struggle, overturned furniture, splashes of blood, and traces of a fight that must have been desperate and violent. Neighbors were stunned. Just a few days earlier, they'd seen Lisa smiling, chatting about her upcoming baby shower, humming softly as she loaded clothes into her car. Now, the same driveway was lined with police tape. Before June 2022, Lisa had already been through hell. She had endured months of abuse at the hands of her boyfriend DeAndre. It wasn't just shouting matches or emotional manipulation, this was physical brutality. In July 2021, Lisa was hospitalized with a broken nose and both eyes blackened. She texted her boss to explain why she couldn't make it to work. She needed to find somewhere safe to stay after being attacked. But still, she went back to him. There were signs, dark, disturbing signs, that something was deeply wrong with DeAndre. He often messaged friends about how he felt suffocated by his emotions, like pressure had been building since childhood. He admitted he didn't know how to cope without exploding or breaking down in tears. But no one, not even Lisa, could have predicted what would come next. On June 5, 2022, DeAndre sent another ominous message. He described himself as a cup filled to the brim about to overflow, a clear metaphor for a mind teetering on the edge. 2 days later, on June 7th at 6:24 p.m., security footage captured DeAndre leaving the apartment with his Uncle Marty. Lisa, unaware of what was going on, grew increasingly anxious. She texted her mother Heidi around 9 p.m., confessing that she was terrified he had abandoned her. He'd taken some clothes with him. Was he gone for good? Heidi, sensing a glimmer of hope, tried to comfort her daughter. Maybe this was Lisa's chance to escape the toxic spiral she was trapped in. But Lisa didn't see it that way. At 1:39 a.m. on June 8th, Lisa couldn't sleep. The anxiety had her driving aimlessly for over half an hour, trying to calm her racing mind. In a heart-wrenching moment, she revealed to her mother that she had harmed herself with a razor. "Because I can't do anything right," she had written. The next morning at 7:06, Lisa texted again. DeAndre still hadn't returned. In an effort to maintain normalcy, she did her laundry, reaching out to DeAndre's family and even asking their landlord to check the surveillance cameras for clues about where he might have gone. By 8 p.m., DeAndre's uncle contacted Lisa saying he'd bring DeAndre home. Despite Heidi's desperate warnings reminding Lisa of the danger she was in and the health risks for her unborn child, Lisa agreed to go. At 9:11 p.m., security footage confirmed Lisa and DeAndre arriving back at their apartment. It would be the last time anyone saw Lisa alive. She sent her final message to her mother, "I'm trying to understand." Between 9:30 and 9:50 p.m., neighbors in the apartment below reported chilling sounds, muffled screams, thuds so intense they shook the floor, and a steady rhythmic banging described eerily as like chopping wood. The screams intensified, then stopped. Silence. That was the moment Lisa was killed. Her end was brutal beyond comprehension. DeAndre, in a fit of psychotic rage, had used a serrated knife to decapitate her. At 11:57 p.m., DeAndre left the apartment carrying a white laundry basket. He returned briefly. He'd forgotten Lisa's car keys, then slipped out again, disappearing behind a nearby convenience store. At 12:01 a.m., security footage from behind that store showed DeAndre throwing the laundry basket into a dumpster. What he discarded would later be confirmed to contain Lisa's severed head along with bloodied clothing. By 2:30 a.m., DeAndre arrived at his mother's house visibly agitated. He pounded on the door carrying Lisa's ID debit card and 2 sets of her keys. When questioned, he claimed he found them on the ground. Then, disturbingly, he placed a "for sale" sign on Lisa's car. At 10 a.m., DeAndre's cousin PJ found him in the bathroom cutting off his long, cherished hair. He said it was time for a fresh start. He threw his old clothes into a trash bin and changed into a new outfit given by his mother. At 1 p.m., Lisa's mother Heidi entered the apartment fearing the worst. Her scream pierced the silence when she discovered Lisa's lifeless, headless body in the bedroom. A towel had been wrapped around her neck like a turban, DeAndre's grotesque attempt to disguise or contain what he'd done. The police were called immediately. Heidi had no doubt who was responsible. By 9:30 p.m. that night, law enforcement raided DeAndre's mother's home. In the trash, they found his discarded clothes and locks of his hair, evidence that aligned with what PJ had reported. On June 10th at 1:45 a.m., DeAndre was arrested in Gillespie, Illinois. He was caught with illegal substances and behaved erratically, pacing, laughing inappropriately, and slamming his head into the wall. Officers had to forcibly restrain him. He refused to give his name, demanding a lawyer instead. By that afternoon, investigators had collected his DNA and fingerprints. DeAndre told them he had a dissociative condition and had once been prescribed medication for mental instability. 3 days later, on June 13th, DeAndre was formally charged 2 counts of first-degree murder, one for intentionally ending Lisa's life and another for the unborn child she carried. He also faced charges for vehicle violations and concealing a death. His bail was set at $2 million. On June 14th, he refused to appear in his virtual court hearing. He reportedly threatened a jail staff member, chillingly declaring, "I'll take your head off." Authorities had to physically restrain him and bring him to court. After psychological evaluation, DeAndre was deemed mentally unfit to stand trial and transferred to a state mental facility. For months, the legal process was delayed. Finally, in January 2024, DeAndre's condition had stabilized enough for him to stand trial. He pleaded guilty. On January 17, 2025, justice was served. DeAndre was sentenced to 60 years in prison, 30 for the murder of Lisa, 20 for the unborn child, and 10 more for trying to hide the horrifying crime. Under state law, he must serve at least 52 years before being eligible for parole. The echoes of that night still reverberate, through her mother's pain, her family's grief, and the community's disbelief. One truth remains: this was not just another crime, it was a descent into madness, a scream in the dark that no one could silence in time. At the heart of it all was Heidi Noel, Lisa's mother. Heidi was not just a grieving parent, she was a fighter. Long before the tragedy, she had sensed something dark in DeAndre. Her instincts had proven right time and again. In fact, she had once obtained a restraining order against him, recognizing his dangerous tendencies. On the night of Lisa's murder, it was Heidi's desperate messages and calls that showed how aware she was of the looming threat. And when she discovered her daughter's lifeless body, she acted with unimaginable strength, calling 911 and pointing to DeAndre without hesitation. In court, Heidi stood firm, her voice unwavering. She became a voice for victims of domestic violence, launching a GoFundMe that raised over $16,000 for support organizations. Her mission was clear: no more silent suffering. Then there was PJ, DeAndre's half-sister, caught between family loyalty and truth. PJ chose honesty. After the murder, she noticed disturbing changes in DeAndre. He had cut off his long hair, something he'd cherished for years, and discarded his clothes. These weren't minor actions. They were calculated attempts to erase evidence. PJ shared everything she saw with investigators, even revealing how unstable DeAndre's life had become in the weeks before the crime. He and Lisa had been fighting constantly, and he had been bouncing between homes. Her testimony painted a clearer picture of DeAndre's mental unraveling. Meanwhile, DeAndre's own family was left in shock. His mother and grandmother were horrified to discover he had Lisa's belongings, her ID, her keys, and her car. Their cooperation with the police was instrumental. They allowed law enforcement to search the home, leading to the discovery of critical items in the trash, including DeAndre's discarded clothing and hair. Their stunned reaction highlighted a tragic truth. Even those closest to DeAndre couldn't have imagined he was capable of such monstrous acts. Chris Hawk, DeAndre's stepfather, took to YouTube in the wake of the arrest. His video was somber. While he condemned DeAndre's actions as vile, he also pleaded with the public to understand the mental health crisis that had consumed him. Chris believed the system had failed not just Lisa, but DeAndre too. It was a controversial stance, but one that added complexity to an already heart-wrenching story. The night of the murder, vital information came not from detectives, but from the floor below. Neighbors had heard it all: thuds, shrieks, banging so rhythmic it sounded like chopping wood. These sounds weren't just terrifying, they marked the exact moment Lisa's life ended. But fear and uncertainty held them back from calling the police right away. Their hesitation reflected a haunting reality: the bystander effect can be deadly in situations of domestic violence. Their delayed response may not have changed the outcome, but it became a tragic reminder of the dangers of silence. The investigators who picked up the pieces were deeply affected. Officers like Wilmersberg, personally thanked by Heidi, poured their hearts into solving the case. The police chief, visibly emotional during press briefings, spoke openly about the toll this case had taken not just on the community but on the law enforcement officers involved. This wasn't just another file on a desk. It was a nightmare etched into their memories. Each supporting figure in this tragic saga helped peel back the layers of a crime so horrifying it defied logic. From the strength of a grieving mother, to the bravery of a conflicted sister, to the quiet actions of a landlord and a stranger near a dumpster, every role mattered. Together they brought light to a darkness few could imagine. And through their actions, Lisa's story became more than a tragedy. It became a call to awareness, a demand for change, and a solemn vow never again. In a case as horrifying as Lisa's, it was the evidence, stark, undeniable, and deeply disturbing, that told the story her voice never would again. The investigation revealed a series of chilling clues, each one painting a darker picture of what had really happened on that quiet June night. It all began with the surveillance cameras. Security footage became the spine of the investigation. It showed DeAndre leaving the apartment with his uncle, a moment that seemed harmless at first. But the camera later captured his return alone, carrying a white laundry basket. And then, even more damning, it caught him in the early morning hours near a convenience store, dumping that very basket into a dumpster. What investigators found later confirmed the worst. Inside the basket was Lisa's severed head, along with clothing soaked in blood. But the camera was just the beginning. Physical evidence was everywhere if you knew where to look. Near the dumpster, a construction worker made a grim discovery. Bloodied garments, red sneakers, and a serrated knife, all discarded carelessly as if they could erase what had happened. DNA testing confirmed the worst. The blood was Lisa's, the items tied directly to DeAndre. Later, investigators recovered his hair and more blood-stained clothing from the trash at his mother's house. Every piece of evidence screamed one thing: this wasn't a random outburst. It was a calculated, gruesome act. Then came the sounds. Neighbors in the apartment below provided chilling testimony. They recalled a series of thuds and screams, not the ordinary noises of a couple fighting, but something far more sinister. One described it as the sound of chopping wood. The rhythm, the force, the silence that followed all of it matched the timeline of Lisa's final moments. Their account added a horrifying sensory layer to the physical evidence. Heidi, Lisa's mother, gave police a window into the past. Her testimony was crucial. She spoke of DeAndre's history of violence, of hospital visits, black eyes, and broken bones. She recalled Lisa's texts in which she begged for a safe place to stay, confessed to being hit, and even hinted at fearing for her life. Heidi's warnings hadn't been just maternal worry, they had been prophetic. But even DeAndre's own family couldn't ignore the signs. His mother and grandmother noticed immediately that he was acting strangely after the crime. He had Lisa's ID, her debit card, her car keys. He was trying to sell her vehicle. When asked about these items, his answers were vague, his demeanor unsteady. They reported it. They opened their home to investigators. What they found confirmed everything. DeAndre had tried to erase the evidence, but not well enough. And then there was DeAndre himself. After the murder, he changed his appearance, cutting off his signature long hair. He threw away his bloodied clothes. He claimed he found Lisa's belongings. When the police arrested him, his behavior was erratic and unsettling. He laughed, he paced, he slammed his head into a wall. He refused to give his name and demanded a lawyer. It wasn't just guilt the officers saw, it was a mind unraveling. This erratic behavior would later support the theory that DeAndre suffered from severe mental instability. But it didn't erase the horror of what he had done. The evidence didn't lie. It told a story more graphic than any witness ever could. A tale of escalating violence, ignored warnings, and a final act of unspeakable brutality. Through security footage, discarded weapons, witness testimony, and his own unraveling mind, DeAndre was bound to the crime in every conceivable way. The case became a grim reminder that danger doesn't always wear a mask. Sometimes it walks right through the front door, hidden in plain sight. And when it finally shows its face, the aftermath is etched in blood silence and the cold clarity of evidence. The gruesome murder of Lisa was more than just a horrifying crime. It was a painful reflection of deep-rooted issues in society. Beneath the blood-stained details and courtroom proceedings lay four urgent interconnected themes: domestic violence, mental health, personal loss, and systemic failure. At the heart of it all was the brutal reality of domestic violence. Lisa was not just murdered, she was a victim long before that final night. For months, she endured physical beatings, emotional manipulation, and the constant fear of what DeAndre might do next. Her broken nose, her blackened eyes, the desperate messages to her mother and boss, they told a story of prolonged suffering. But like many victims, Lisa returned to her abuser hoping things would change. They never did. Her mother, Heidi Knoll, saw the warning signs early. She'd even taken legal action to protect her daughter, securing a restraining order against DeAndre at one point. After Lisa's death, Heidi didn't retreat into silence. Instead, she became a voice for change, using her grief to raise awareness about the deadly cycle of abuse. Through public statements and fundraising efforts, she urged others to recognize the signs, speak up, and seek help before it's too late. But violence isn't always rooted in evil alone. Sometimes it grows from untreated suffering. DeAndre's erratic behavior both before and after the murder raised critical questions about mental health. He had spoken to friends about feeling overwhelmed about years of bottled-up emotions he didn't know how to process. His family described a troubled young man who seemed to be losing control. On the night of the arrest, his actions were beyond alarming. He laughed, paced, refused to cooperate, and slammed his head into walls. These weren't just signs of guilt, they were cries for help that had gone unheard for too long. His stepfather, Chris Hawk, publicly condemned the murder, but also pointed to a failing system. DeAndre, he argued, was one of many who fell through the cracks of mental health care. The resources weren't there. The support systems didn't catch him in time. It was a warning that without proper mental health intervention, tragedy can become inevitable. Meanwhile, the emotional wreckage left behind was immeasurable. Lisa's family was shattered. Heidi didn't just lose her daughter, she lost her unborn grandchild. The weight of that double grief is impossible to quantify. Yet even in her darkest hour, Heidi found ways to honor her daughter's life. In court, she read aloud a poem Lisa had written, a haunting, beautiful piece that captured Lisa's hope, strength, and untapped potential. The words served as both a memorial and a call to action. And finally, the case exposed glaring failures in the systems meant to protect people like Lisa and help people like DeAndre. There were missed opportunities everywhere, missed interventions, missed warnings, missed moments to change the outcome. Lisa should have had better protection. DeAndre should have had better treatment. Both were failed by a patchwork system unable to respond effectively to warning signs that now in hindsight seem so painfully clear. Lisa's story isn't just a headline or a courtroom drama. It is a call for societal reckoning. It reminds us that domestic violence is often silent until it's too loud to ignore, that mental health can no longer be sidelined as an afterthought, that grief, though deeply personal, can fuel powerful change, and that a broken system must be rebuilt before it allows another life to be stolen in silence. In Lisa's memory, may her story inspire action, not just mourning. The story of the Lisa Dodd case serves as a powerful reminder about domestic violence and mental health crises. The detailed timeline from Lisa's final messages to DeAndre's sentencing reveals the complexity of the case. Supporting figures from Heidi to the neighbors played key roles in uncovering the truth. This case is not only a tragedy, but also a call to action to strengthen support for victims of abuse and improve mental health care, helping to prevent similar tragedies in the future.